Hello and welcome to the Gridiron Waiver Wire Report. Delighted to say this is a brand new show every single week. Did your team have a terrible week? And I don't just mean Browns, Jets, 49ers, Lions. Sorry, I was going to go off on one then. Your fantasy team, are you looking like you're going to be number one on the waiver wire this week? Well, I'm delighted to say that we're joined by a legitimate expert who can tell you who's worth looking at with your valuable waiver wire pickups this week. Joining us this week and hopefully every week, Pete Rogers from SB Nation's Fake Teams. Pete, how are you doing, buddy?
I am doing well. Was up early this morning with the dog vomiting, but we're here. Football is here, and we are going to power through it to make sure that your fantasy team is successful this year.
So he also drafted Carson Wentz then?
Oh, man, he was not pleased with Wentz's performance this week.
Superb. Pete, let's get into the top five, and we start off with a tight end in the NFC East who got a surprising number of targets this week.
Yeah, so number 5 for me is Dallas Goedert of the Philadelphia Eagles. He is probably the most widely owned on this list. I have him at 54% on Yahoo leagues, which, you're hoping he's still there. But now is the time to go get him. We've seen the Eagles and the relationship between them and Zach Ertz disintegrate in the last couple of weeks. It seems like things are not going well there, which means that if Ertz is to either get shut down or traded, Dallas Goedert steps into a huge role in an offense that loves their tight end and loves to target this tight end. And even with Ertz on the field in week 1, Goedert led the team in targets, receptions, and yards. He had 9 targets, 8 catches, 101 yards and a touchdown. So he looks like he's going to be a contributing factor in this offense, even if Zach Ertz is still there on the field.
Yeah, the Eagles threw the ball 42 times on Sunday night, and 42 times, I mean, between Ertz and Goddard, they got 16 targets, which is a ridiculous sum for your first 2 tight ends anyway. But Goddard saw more targets, more catches, more yardage. Ertz, if you own him, was only basically saved by a touchdown.
Yeah, Zach Ertz, something to monitor. That relationship looks tenuous at best, and certainly that's going to be a contributing factor to his value moving forward.
All right, as we say, he's the most owned guy on our list this week. Let's talk about an offense which I have absolutely bought zero stock in any league that I'm in right now, and yet Anthony Miller looks like he could be an interesting pickup this week.
Yeah, so it's hard to want to buy a part of the Chicago Bears offense, just especially with Mitchell Trubisky under center. That being said, you can't tell me young Mitch didn't look like a serviceable quarterback in week 1 against the Lions when he led the comeback. Miller had 6 targets for 4 catches, 76 yards and a touchdown. He was the number 2 guy along Allen Robinson. He's had a really strong rookie year last year, which was marred by injury, and it took him a little bit of time to get healthy on the field. But as this Bears offense looks to kind of figure out exactly what they are, Allen Robinson, clear number 1 guy, but that number 2 target behind him is up in the air. It was Tariq Cohen last year, but it looks like Anthony Miller could be stepping into that role, and so he's certainly someone to kind of buy a part of. And if the Bears do the right thing eventually and move to Nick Foles, this offense could be even more potent moving forward.
If and when, I think Pete means they do the right thing. If and when.
If only they hadn't traded for Nick Foles and decided to sign Cam Newton. But what are we going to do?
Hindsight is 2020, but then again, most of us were saying it at the time as well. So swings and roundabouts, all sorts of cliches being thrown out there. All sorts of British cliches as well, which you'll find a lot on this show, Pete. Let's get into the Sunday night football. The Los Angeles Rams. I saw a lot of leagues where I saw Cam Akers going reasonably high, like higher than I would have expected for a second-round rookie. I know it was their highest pick last year, but turns out he wasn't the guy who was being the workhorse in Los Angeles.
Yeah, it was Malcolm Brown, who had 18 carries, 79 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then also saw 3 catches through the air for 31 yards. He was the clear number 1 back to start, at least for LA. And now Cam Akers had 14 carries and was still a part of this offense. I actually drafted Cam Akers in one of my leagues. I since have dropped him it's a small league, so he was not worth the roster spot, given that he's not going to be, doesn't seem to have locked up that gig. But Brown, we know what Sean McVay's offense could do in terms of running backs. Even a banged-up Todd Gurley that people love to hate on last year scored 14 touchdowns and was a top 15 running back in fantasy. So if Malcolm Brown has this gig locked down for the whole season, he has certainly got, he's an RB2 with maybe some weeks where he's an RB1. So he's definitely worth rostering.
Now, there are times when you're playing fantasy football and you make a decision pre the week, whether it's putting someone in your lineup, whether it's dropping somebody or picking somebody up, and there's an instant either regret or joy to it. And this week I hovered over in a dynasty league and I looked at, I needed to pick up an extra quarterback. I've been an absolute dumpster fire back there ever since Andrew Luck retired basically in this league. I've got a mix of Goff, Darnold, just a whole mess back there.
Oh boy.
But yeah, exactly. It's not a good thing. But I was looking and seeing which of the quarterbacks out there was available who I could start and maybe use a bit of a position on. And I hovered over and I very, very, very nearly dropped Robby Anderson. I didn't do it. And by the end of Sunday night, I was feeling pretty good about my decision.
As well you should. Robby Anderson is a great downfield threat. And he showed that with the Jets in his career earlier. He just had difficulty staying on the field and playing in an offense that actually utilized him. First game with the Panthers, he led the team in receptions and yards. He had 6 catches for 115 yards and the lone touchdown through the air. He was second on the team in targets behind DJ Moore. He looks to be a contributing factor on this team. And he has the skill to be able to routinely get down the field, stretch that field. And with defenses having to worry about DJ Moore and, of course, Christian McCaffrey in that backfield, Anderson could be a guy who's routinely flex start worthy and can give you wide receiver 2 numbers, even maybe sneak into that wide receiver 1 any given week. But he is certainly worth getting onto your roster and adding, especially if you're in standard leagues, because he's going to be a big yardage, big touchdown, big play guy.
That being said, most catches on the team, second most in targets, like you said. So, yeah, it was seeing those looks as well, which you don't always see for a downfield guy. You might be relying on that 75-yard catch like Robby Anderson did have this week. But, tasty pickup available on in a lot of leagues this weekend. And we talked a little bit about the running back situation in Los Angeles, and there was a lot of question marks over who was going to take the lead role there. Very similar question marks in Indianapolis. This time, this was very much less a case of we saw a guy come to the fore. And unfortunately, as is often going to be the way on the Waiver Wire show, an injury has led to somebody being available who we like as our number 1 guy this week.
Yeah, so Nyheim Hines is someone who, if you are going to pick up one person off waivers, I am saying it's Nyheim Hines, especially, oh my goodness, if you're in PPR leagues, you should be not looking past Hines. I was big on Hines this offseason as soon as they Colts signed Phillip Rivers. We know, Austin Eckler last year showed us Phillip Rivers, there's nothing he loves more than when under pressure, checking down to the running back. And in the Colts offense, it's shown that Nyheim Hines is the guy who has that passing game locked down. And we saw it this week when Marlon Mack unfortunately left the game, and it's feared to have been a torn Achilles. I don't know if we've gotten confirmation on that, but I know that last thing I heard was Shefty was saying that they were worried about that. With Marlon Mack out, Jonathan Taylor will see more work, obviously the rookie running back, and he did see work in this game, but Hines had racked up 28 yards and a touchdown on the ground to go with also a team-leading 8 catches for 45 yards and another touchdown. I just think that we may not see exactly the same level of production that Austin Eckler gave us last year with Phillip Rivers, but I think Nyheim Hines is going to be a guy now who you get off waivers right now, and he will give you solid production for the rest of the year as that number 2 pass-catching back in the Colts offense.
And look, the thing is, a lot of the time I'm a guy who likes a running back on a good team because they're more likely to see the ball more due to game flow. And people are going to look at the result for the Indianapolis Colts and say to themselves, they just lost to the Jags, who a lot of us were picking as the number 1 overall pick. They might not be a good team, but this was a weird game. If you've not watched it back yet, the Colts had double the yardage of the Jags. They had the 2 interceptions and the failed 4th down conversion, which absolutely killed them. A missed field goal, which was basically a chip shot from the rookie with the funny glasses as well. This was a weird game, which if they replayed it 9 times out of 10, I think the Colts win. And therefore, I think that they will see enough usage out of their backs to make them absolutely fantasy worthy, particularly in a year where the running back position is pretty light. Right, that's our top 5 for this week. Nyheim Hines, our number 1 pickup. Pete, if people want to find any more information about where they can find, you've done a top 10 online somewhere. So if they want to get a bit deeper, if they're in a bit of a deeper league, where do they go to find that stuff out?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Twitter at Pete M. Rogers, no D there. And then I write a top 10 waiver wire article every week coming out Sunday nights, live Monday mornings on faketeams.com. So you can make sure to check it out there.
And join us every week for our top 5 waiver wire pickups on a Tuesday morning. Plus, look out for the Gridiron Show podcast. We've got Coach Brian Billick joining us every week to break down some of the work from the weekend. Kayla will be with us alongside the usual suspects, talking about the big talking points of the week. So get at Gridiron on Twitter, UK Gridiron on Instagram, subscribe, like, do all the stuff on YouTube that the professionals tell you to do. Thank you very much for watching.